kinds of situational analysis. The first is external analysis. And that is, what's going on outside the group. So for an occult organization, what are some things that we might think about in terms of an external analysis? Even for something like Theory on Babylon, what's an external analysis?
The cost of rent in the area.
Okay, so economics of the area. We'll just have a broad form of that. What might that include? Things like rent. What else?
Cost of insurance.
Cost of insurance. Also cost of living. How well the economy is doing. I was talking to somebody about an OTO community in the United States, and they said they've never recovered from an economic downturn. The whole area is just like bewailing the fate of the 90s. They were great, they were riding high, everything was wonderful, people had loads of money, it went under, it's never come back. So, general economic. Demographics, who lives in the area? If we're in a retirement community in Florida, that's something to keep in mind, right? What else? Here's a sneaky one here. How about the competition? Okay, this is really touchy in nonprofit groups because everybody's like usually liberal and they're like, I don't want to think bad thoughts about the other groups. Oh, mother bastards. We don't want to diss the competition, and it gets kind of dicey in our circumstances. But we want to look at what other spiritual groups that are out there that are like ours are. Whether we're losing people to them, whether people are coming to us from them. What's the overall climate of the competition, who we recognize as possible competitors. That's important. So those are some things in external analysis. Basically what you're looking at are opportunities and threats, not to put too fine a point on it. All of these things could be opportunities and all these things could be threats. But you have to, in your external situational analysis, you have to look at those two issues. What's an opportunity, what's a threat? Strategic planning tries to maximize opportunities and minimize threats. So, what's a threat to the group? Can we think of one? What's a possible threat to TBO? What?
Competition.
Yeah, there could be some new occult group that could suddenly spring up and everyone could get really totally involved with them and no one would have time for the OTO anymore. That happens in some areas. It's happened before. Not a real threat that I see happening to us now, but it's possible. So you want to keep an eye out for that. I'm thinking more of something like lawsuit. If we get actual property, if we start owning a lot of property, real property, then there are unfortunately a lot of people out there with lawyers who want to take it away from us. And they're looking for an opportunity to come in and take that property. And if you don't have any property, there's nothing for them to take. But if you don't have any property, there's not a lot for you either. So that brings up things like insurance, protecting your property, looking at possible threats. That's very important. What are some possible opportunities that we might see externally for TBO?
Expansion.
Well, in what sense? What's an opportunity? We want to expand.
Increasing the membership.
So that's what we want. We want to do that. That could even be a goal over here. But in terms of our analysis right now, I would say something like, here's an opportunity. We live in an area with a lot of colleges. There's a lot of young people involved. Most of the people tend to join the OTO when they're in their 20s. I think we could look at this and maybe see if that was statistically true. I know I did. I know a lot of people did. So the fact that we're here around all these universities could be a real opportunity for us. It certainly doesn't look like a threat. So these are things to keep in mind. Let's look at some internal analysis. We're looking again at strengths and weaknesses. So what three areas are we going to examine for situational analysis for the group? First, equipment. Originally, we were looking at the fact that we needed to get equipment we didn't have. So our situational analysis was, at the time, whether we knew it or not, when we did it, was we don't have the equipment we need to get it. So that became a goal. Now our equipment's pretty good. Could it be better? Yeah. Are we threatened by crappy equipment that could break down? Not really. There's improvements that could be made, and maybe we need to think about that, but we don't see an immediate threat. Next is personnel, or as I like to call it, the bench from baseball. Who do you have on your bench? So, opportunities. We have a lot of new people who are really into Thelema coming to TBO. Downside, not a lot of experience. Okay, this is not like some of the lodges where everybody's like a 5th or 6th degree, they've been anywhere for a long time, they have a huge amount of information about magic, their classes are very, very heavy and intense. I was talking to someone who was bragging about their body like that. That's not us. Okay, so we don't have a lot of experience, by and large. There's people here with experience, it's not a major resource at the moment. And lastly is resources. And by that we mean what? Money. Okay, so are we financially stable through the end of the year? No? How about for the next 3 months? Pretty much, right? This is a touchy area for us right now. There's some threats there. Am I correct? Yes, there is. So any goal setting that we do, any issues that we look at, any long-term strategies that we make have got to have all of these things involved in them. And the biggest threat that we can look at right now in terms of the little exercise-like cursory version of situational analysis, the biggest threat that we're looking at is money. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Significant. Now, having examined our little situational analysis, we then need to proceed to an interesting question, which is, can we do strategic planning? Well, let's answer some questions. Is there money coming in to cover the basic expenses? Pretty much. For the next 3 months, yeah. Okay. We're not about to be pitched out into the street. Okay. Just covering that. Because you know what? If we were, we can't do strategic planning. This whole exercise, even this discussion, is a waste of time. We need to get that money together, right? And get it to the person so that we're not kicked out of the street. Next, will the plans go anywhere? If we were to come up with plans right now, were we the people responsible for coming up with strategic plans, would they go anywhere? If all of us look at each other and go, you know what? I don't think those plans would go anywhere, then we shouldn't do the strategic planning. There's no point. We have to look at why they would go anywhere first. Is there cynicism about planning in our organization? Now, in the larger OTO structure, I think there is some cynicism about planning, partly because it hasn't been done very successfully in the past, and people are not used to thinking in terms of strategic planning. In our little group, I don't really think there's that much cynicism about it. I don't detect it. I don't see people going, oh God, that stuff never works. Goals, no. In fact, I think that most of the people in TBO are pretty gung-ho about planning. We're satisfied we got some good results with the little planning we've done so far. We think we can go forward with it. But that's something to consider, because why do it if no one thinks it's going to go anywhere and everyone is cynical about it? Do we want to have a plan? If we don't want one, we need to want one. If we'd rather not have one, we need to get people on board to have one. And the question comes is, would we rather have a plan or not have one? I think most of us would rather have a plan. Therefore, I think we're in a position to do strategic planning. But if everybody wasn't interested in it, we shouldn't have it. Are the leaders working together? Yeah. Now again, let's go back and review just quickly. If the leaders aren't working on this strategic plan, is it a strategic plan? If they've delegated it out to some schnooks, is it a strategic plan? No. They have to be involved. If the leaders can't work together, don't plan. Get the leaders to work together first, then do your planning. Is the CEO going to be around for 3 months? Probably. Okay? If the person in charge of the organization is going to be out the door in like 2 or 3 months, why do a strategic plan? They're not going to be. The new person isn't going to be invested in it, and the old person leaving is going to be, who cares? I'm not going to be around to see this through or not. I'm not invested either. So stable leadership, that's a must. Can people put the time in to plan? If they can't, don't have a plan. So once you can meet all of those questions, then you can have a plan. So finally, as we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly, let's move to the last part of this, which is assuming that we have the plan, we can do all this stuff, we've done the analysis, let's look at the kind of goals that you want to have. And the short version of this are SMART goals. Whenever you come up with goals for a strategic plan, they need to be SMART. And by that, I mean they need to be strategic in that they have to build on each other. They can't be the Family Guy, boom, 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 as we explained. They have to be measurable. Now, I have a quote about this. Crowley tells us, all sanity, which is all science, is founded upon limit. We must be able to cut off, to define, to measure. Naturally, then, their opposites, insanity and religion, have for their prime characteristic the indefinable, incomprehensible, and immeasurable. So here, I see Crowley kind of giving the measurable part of this a boost. What is an example of an unmeasurable goal?
Increase the membership.
Well, yeah, that's a very good one. Increase it by what? 1 or 2 people? Hey, we got a new person in after 8 months.
Yep.
Woo-wee, we met our goal, right? Well, you lost 4 people. No, but we was to increase. We increased by 1. Yep. It's not specific. You know, somebody was like, ooh, wisdom, right? That's a goal. We're all going to become wise. How do you do you feel wise? Today I do. Yesterday, when I did stupid things, not so much. Magic, in general, Crowley tells us in Magic and Theory and Practice, is unlike science because it deals with things that are difficult to measure. He doesn't say, stop measuring that and just throw it to the wind and be chaos magicians. Woo! He says, no, you work on actually working harder to measure the results that you are getting. So strategic planning is all about what is measurable. You said increase the membership. Yes. And as posited that way as a goal so that we're all watching out the door, woo, we're going to increase the members. That's not really a measurable goal. Increase it by how much? By 10%? By 20%? That's a measurable goal. We want 5 new Minervals in the next 3 months. Now, what's the virtue of that? You will be able to tell. If you got 6, you exceeded your goal. If you got 2, you did not. You failed in getting your goal. So strategic goals have to be measurable. There has to be a metric there. And we see this a lot in the OTO because people keep saying things like, it's getting better. It's getting better. Well, yes, subjectively, if you want to spin that way that it is, but you could also say it's getting worse. There are plenty of ways you could say, well, I'm not buying this. So at the same time, if you set a measurable goal, like we're going to do X by X, that way either it will get met or not. There's no spin possible. The more measurable it is, the more spin resistant it is. Okay, the next one is accountable. A is for accountable. What does that mean? We're going to increase the membership. Is that accountable? Hey, it wasn't my problem. It was Angel's. Hey, Angel's like, the rest of you all didn't do what you were supposed to do. It's not my beef. If individual people are not being held accountable for their part of the strategic goal, it's not a real goal. Who is going to work on that particular part of increasing the membership? What are they going to do? Are you going to man a table at a UC event, from a certain amount of time? So that if somebody doesn't do that, they will be accountable to the leaders and to everyone else, maybe, as to why that didn't happen or why that wasn't done. Now, at my old job, one of our political program directors, people were going around the room talking about their pieces, and my boss realized he, the political program director of the organization, really didn't have any goals that he was accountable for. And this was deliberate, because he's a nice guy, but didn't want to be held accountable for anything. So I think this is another kind of problem in the community that people tend to resist being held accountable because, again, that's too much like work. But it has to be accountable. Lastly, the goal has to be realistic. Not lastly, almost lastly. The goal has to be realistic. So we've already gone over a little bit about what unrealistic goals are. Our mead factory, the temples on the moon. But what is a realistic goal, and how will we know? How do you know what a realistic goal is?
Attaining property. Experience.
Well, yeah, you said attaining property is a goal. Is that a realistic goal? You think it is. How do you know it is? Because a lot of people will say, attaining property within the next 5 years for any OTO body is not a realistic goal.